13 Sports Coaches Show. I'm Katie Marr. Very happy to be joined by the two Seaman high school track coaches, Scott Petersen and Rick Brading. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Our pleasure.
Well, we just came off arguably the most exciting week in one of the most exciting weeks in all of high school sports, but especially for the spring season, that is state track. The biggest state track meet in the entire country right here in Kansas. How fun is that meet for you guys?
Scott, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. We look forward to it every year. I think it's cool to see all the great people in all the different classes, which you wouldn't get to if they had it split. I know I'm kind of a fan of the everybody being there. Remember back a few years ago, and we had a kid named Ryan Irving that was really good in the 400. And we'd run against a kid named Drew Marino from St. Thomas Aquinas, who was really good. And then there was a guy from Riley County named Jordy Nelson, who was really good. And we had to run against him a couple of times at Manhattan and then once at the KU relays. But then it was kind of cool again to see all three of those guys in the different classes at the state meet. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it. Yep.
Yeah, it's been a really good experience this year with having kids that were really in the money in their events, which made it a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, speaking of those kids, for Scott, you have Aaron Merritt, of course, and Rick, you have Ryan Miller. We'll start by talking about Aaron. Kid's a senior, is about to go run track and field for KU. Just how do you kind of look back at his senior season? It was so special, broke so many records, leading the state in the 100-meter hurdles and 110-meter hurdles and 100-meter dash. What do you say about that kid?
Well, I mean, I don't think I could say enough about him. I really, really enjoyed this year. I mean, I really enjoy coaching him had he not been the state champ, but it was really cool to see that hard work pay off. I know there's the cool t-shirts and the quotes that go around that say, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard or whatever. But when talent and hard work meet, it's hard to beat. And that's the kind of kid that Aaron is. So yeah, it was really fun. I mean, he's come a long way since a sophomore. I mean, he was really talented as a sophomore too, but every year you got to see his times kind of come down. And then at the start of the year, I think we talked and I was just, some of the things he did were just like, that's amazing. Like that's fast. And so you just kind of hope it panned out. I told Ryan Foxhoven, who's our sprint coach, we'd try to compare him a little bit to Joe Reagan, who's a guy that we had a few years ago that was a state champ in the 100. And I think Aaron was faster at every point in the season than Joe was. And so I was like, man, I really think there's something special that could happen here. And then you just have to kind of hope he stays healthy and things work out right. And yeah, but it was a good meet. I'm very happy for him. I mean, he's so deserving of all the accolades that he got and couldn't be more happy for him.
Yeah, first place, technically breaking the state record. I know the whole win thing is kind of a debate with Geisha right now, but we're going to say he broke it for the 100-meter dash and first place for 110-meter hurdles as well. From your point of view as a coach, what goes into his training to run like that?
Oh, I mean, just speed. I mean, the same thing we kind of did with everybody. We just try to focus on just speed and being faster and then being technically sound when we run so you can be more efficient. That's kind of what I like to tell people when they sprint is I'm like, there's no wrong way to do it, but I can tell you there's a way to do it that spends a little less energy and makes you a little quicker. And that sounds like a pretty good deal. And he really embraced that. He really listened to it. It's really nice. I mean, and I hate to say this about some people, but there are some people who are really coachable, like they want to do it. They don't so they can, And Aaron's one of those guys where you can say something to him and then he can do it. I think Rick and I were kind of talking about that a little bit with the hurdles. His sophomore year, I think we made a slight tweak in his hurdles, and all of a sudden he went from being a mid 15-second guy to a high 14-second guy. And it was just it's amazing just that, with a couple of days of practice, he could pick that up. So yeah, he's a really talented kid. He works really hard and we just tried to make sure that we stayed healthy and didn't overwork him. Yeah.
And I know earlier in the season, I did come by. We did a feature on Aaron and talked about, his goal was to be a state champ. Of course, that happened, but also that he enjoys being a part of the relay team. He could enter in 4 different events individually and medal in all of them, but he wants to be a part of a team. Just talk about 4x1 relay. You guys placed second in 5A, and then that was, I believe, your program best time ever. Talk about that relay team for a sec.
Yeah, those guys are just great to be around too. They all do the same. They all come, they all want to be better. They all love each other. I think that's the most fantastic thing is they really care about each other. And so like, I think it was at our place, the first time we broke the 43-second barrier. Jacob Anderson just ran across the field and gave me a hug, and Aaron was on his way to the middle to give us a hug, and Bryce was on his way back to see us again. I mean, those guys just care so much about each other, and we're so happy with the success that they had. And so we really try to be smart with all those guys, Jacob and Bryce, and make sure that and Peyton too, just make sure that those guys had a chance to have some success at the state meet. I mean, that's kind of another thing that Rick brought up and we'll probably talk about in a minute too, is that we're just like, you guys just be yourself, don't make this out to be too big. I mean, I love that Aaron had goals of being the state champ, but if he'd have run 10-3-2 and got second, I still would have been thrilled with him. It would have been maybe slightly disappointed that he didn't win, but we just wanted him to run well. And so the fact that he got to do both, that's pretty special. Yeah. So
yeah, and the Vikings had another record breaker this weekend. That'd be Ryan Miller. Rick, on the girls' side, she has been stellar all season long, breaking records and leading the state in distance running. 1,632. Friday night, she places second in the 32, and then Saturday she comes in and wins the 1,600 and 800. How special? She's only a sophomore. How special was this season for her?
Well, I know it had to be very special and somewhat in the beginning a little surprising. She's a multi-sport kid with cross country, basketball, soccer, and track, and this about in February she ran in an indoor meet, and it's not that she wasn't having great success, but because she was third in cross country, but at that meet she ran a 9:49 3,000 meter run. And I can remember looking at my watch and then looking, and I kind of felt like maybe they counted the laps wrong right in the beginning, and then figured out that wasn't right. But from that point on, she's just an elite level athlete. And it opened my eyes because I knew she was good, but I didn't realize how good that she could be. And she has just continued to, she works her tail off, and it's kind of a special tweak that you have to do because she's playing soccer 2 days a week, and you don't want to over train her, but yet, she's now one of the top 20 distance runners in the country. And so she handles hard workouts and hard training.
Yeah, and fun fact for all the viewers, when I went and did a story on Ryan earlier in the season, she did tell me that she only started running because she wanted to use it as a way to keep in shape for soccer, and then it ends up becoming a thing that she might be the best at. And she's among, like Rick just said, the top 20 in the country. But she's only a sophomore, and what does that say about how high her ceiling could go the next 2 years?
Well, it could go pretty high. And coming up here, she's going to be hearing from, schools, thinking ahead to the next level and all those things. And the sky's the limit, but, also want her to stay as grounded as she can be in all of this.
Yeah, and you also had a 4x400 team that placed second and I believe set a program best time for you guys.
The 4x4, Ryan set a split best for the high school. We keep track of that on every meet, and she ran a 56.18, which is the best ever at Seaman High School. And then the 402, that included Taylor Heston and Jada Stahlbaumer and Allie Steiner as well. They are our fourth best 4x4 in our history in our school. And awesome. Of course, they were second, and I think they qualified fifth or sixth going into the finals. So they really competed well to get there.
Yeah. This is a question for both of you guys. What I've noticed talking to a lot of different kids and coaches about track for the last week is that a lot of them just do so much better on finals day than they do in the prelims. What is it that you think just kind of does a switch flip when it comes to prelims to finals that just makes them run better?
Well, I think that can be the case, but I think that has a lot to do, and of course, I know Scott would tell you the same thing. It has a lot to do with the kid. It has to do with that individual kid, and if some kids are gamers, and of course, in our case, we had a number of gamers, that show up and they love the competition, and as it gets tougher, they get faster and get better.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the competition was the big one. I know in the prelims, I'd always, in fact, Aaron asked me kind of what my thought were on prelims, and I just said, hey, run them just like you'd run any race, take it 100%. You never know what's going to happen, and but it's still one of those things. Like I think you could tell in the 110 prelims he knew he was in, and so he kind of slowed down at the end. And I think kind of the same thing in the 100. He knew he was going to win his heat, so he kind of slowed down at the end. But when you get to the finals, he's surrounded by some dudes, and those guys could really run, and they pushed each. I mean, Aaron got out really well, but those guys were right behind him every step of the way, and he knew how to keep running. And to his credit, he didn't lock up and then again try to not run his race and try to do something different. He just kind of stayed loose and stayed quick and across the finish line, and then obviously looked up, and that time was amazing. So I think the competition has a lot to do with it, and our kids certainly wanted to compete. And we really appreciate that about them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for both of you guys, just how exciting of a time is it to be involved with the Seaman track program? Because you have these stars like Aaron and Ryan, but you also have these kids making up the relay teams who are doing so well. And you guys are, placing in the top 10 in the state and you're in 5A. Just how exciting is it to be a part of this program?
Well, some people would say that a rising tide floats all ships. And it seems like that when you have great athletes, they do lift, elevate the ability or the competitive level of the other athletes. And so that does make it fun, for sure.
Yeah, it's fun. I've always, and I've told the kids this a bunch. Like, I really appreciate the kids. They're just their work ethic, their character, their willingness to come and be coached. I mean, everybody. Jacob Anderson on that 4x1, I love to death, but he overthinks things quite a bit. I mean, every time he's done with the race, he's like, "Man, we could have done this better. We could have done this better." I'm like, "There's always things we can do to get better. Let's just enjoy this one for a little while, And same thing with all those guys. They just they want to get better. They want to be coached, and I've just really appreciated that about those guys. But yeah, it's fun to kind of go and like Rick said, like we had some kids that we thought were in the money, and then watch them compete and actually flow through with it. I think I think it's tough personally for a kid his first year at state to kind of do well, but this would have been Ryan actually ran a part of the relays last year. But and Aaron is the 4x1, but he didn't get to run in an open. Well, I guess he ran in one open race as a junior, and so we just kind of hope that that they come and perform well, and it's not too big of a they don't make too big of a deal out of it. They just do what they do, and they were talented and let that take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and now that it's the summer, they're out of school, what does the training look like for these kids? A lot of them are multi-sport athletes. What goes into their keeping in shape for, if they run cross country in the fall, but also just thinking about next season?
Well, I know with cross country, we give them a couple of weeks off, but then the kids just get right back into doing summer runs. But if you drove by the school today, there's conditioning going on already for everything. And so it's kind of a year-round process.
Yeah, I think a lot of this summer conditioning are the other sports when it comes to track and field. I know last year when Aaron was done with his junior year, he kind of decided he was going to focus on track, and then he started with the summer track club and ran AAU meets and things. But most of our kids are involved in either soccer or football, or like I said, the distance runners will go start their summer runs here in a couple of weeks. So yeah, sometimes our administrators joke that the summer's busier than the school year at school as far as kids, because we've got kids coming in at 6, and I don't think all the conditioning gets done until 10 or 11 in the morning. Sometimes it's pretty busy. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's edition of the 13 Sports Coaches Show. Track is always, this was my first time covering the meet this past Saturday, and I had a very good time. I had a lot of fun. I got a little burnt. I hope you guys didn't get too burnt. It was very hot.
Yeah. Just a little
But
more.
yeah, just a little bit. And you need the tan to start
Yeah.
coming in for the summer, so it works.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining me. And every Wednesday, 6:45, you can find us